The Miami Dolphins have made moves. Not the headline-grabbing, earth-shattering, jaw-dropping kind of moves that shake the entire NFL landscape, but moves nonetheless. And if there's one thing that's crystal clear about the way they've approached the first wave of free agency, it's that they weren't looking for just one or two big swings. They were looking to fill holes. A lot of them. Because this roster, as talented as it was last year, had gaps. More gaps than anyone in Miami would like to admit. And those gaps had to be addressed. Heading into the offseason, the Dolphins were staring at a numbers problem. Fewer than 50 players under contract. They need to get to 90 before training camp. That means depth pieces, role players, and guys who might not be stars, but can step in and contribute. That's what this offseason has been about. There were no blank checks, no luxury signings, just calculated risks, patching holes, and trying to ensure this roster is competitive when the season kicks off. Take James Daniels, for example. A 3-year, $24 million deal isn't chump change, but it's also not a massive commitment. The structure of the deal tells you everything. Miami can move on after a year if they need to. And why? Because Daniels is coming off a torn Achilles. He's got the talent. When healthy, he's a clear upgrade on the interior offensive line. But Miami wasn't about to throw guaranteed money at a player recovering from a major injury without some safeguards in place. And then there's Efita Melifonwu, a defensive back with an intriguing skill set, the kind of athlete who can move around the secondary and provide versatility. But there's a reason Detroit didn't keep him around. Injuries have been a problem. So Miami takes a chance, hoping he can stay on the field long enough to showcase his potential. If he does, they might have something special. If not, they protected themselves financially. Then we have the quarterback situation. Zach Wilson. That's a name that stirs up all kinds of emotions. Some still believe there's something there, buried under all the struggles in New York. Others saw enough Jets football to know exactly what he is. But here's the thing. Miami isn't bringing him in to be a franchise savior. They aren't even bringing him in to compete for the starting job. Wilson's job is simple. Be a better backup than Skylar Thompson and Tyler Huntley. That's it. And realistically, he probably is. But let's not ignore the irony here. The last time Dolphins fans saw Wilson in meaningful game action, he was getting obliterated. December 2023, a 30-0 Dolphins beatdown that ended with Wilson watching from the sideline after Miami's defense made him look completely lost. That was his last regular season game. And now, he's wearing aqua and orange. The other signings? Smart, calculated, low-risk moves. Alexander Mattison isn't Dalvin Cook, but he used to be Cook's backup in Minnesota and brings a level of physicality Miami didn't have at running back last year. Nick Westbrook-Ikine isn't stealing headlines, but he might just be the best WR3 the Dolphins have had since Mike McDaniel took over. And if you need proof that the Dolphins were more aggressive this time around, just look at the numbers. 9 unrestricted free agents signed already. Last year, they signed 7 all offseason. That's a clear shift in approach. Miami knew they needed depth. They knew they couldn't afford to sit back and wait. But perhaps the biggest difference between this offseason and last year's? The departures. Or rather, the lack of them. Sure, Javon Holland is gone. That one hurts. But compare that to last year, when they lost Christian Wilkins, Robert Hunt, and Andrew Van Ginkel all in a matter of days. That exodus of talent stung. This year, it hasn't been nearly as painful. In fact, they even managed to retain linebacker Tyrell Dodson. That might not seem like a huge deal, but it is. Last offseason, Miami let every one of their key free agents walk in the first wave of free agency. This time, they made sure to hold onto one of their important pieces on defense. That's a shift. Does all of this mean Miami is definitively better than they were last year? That's the million-dollar question. And the honest answer? Nobody knows yet. What we do know is this. Miami wasn't passive. They saw where they needed help, and they attacked those areas. Maybe not with star power, but with numbers, depth, and an awareness that their roster needed to be built up in a different way this time around. Last year, the Dolphins made a splash. They landed big names. And they lost big names, too. This year, they're playing the long game. They're trying to make sure this team isn't just talented on paper, but actually built to withstand the grind of an entire season. No, these moves won't dominate the headlines. They won't have rival fan bases panicking. But that's fine, because Miami isn't trying to win the offseason. They're trying to win when it matters.